Welcome to the 44th Annual Old Dominion University Literary Festival. Our theme this year, Afterwards, highlights work that addresses the storms of past and present and the changes wrought upon us as we turn to face the future. I'm Ken Waska, co-director of the festival, along with my colleague, Catherine Jackson, and we'd like to thank you all for being here today in person at the University Theater, as well as virtually, for tonight's reading by Edie and Forrest P. White, visiting writer in residence, Gabrielle Calaparesi. Following the reading, we will have a time for audience members to ask questions. So, if you're in the audience, start storing them up. And if you're out there on the internet, on YouTube, and other places that our event streaming to, please feel free to leave your questions for the Q&A portion in the comments. And it is also my honor tonight to introduce the writer who will be introducing our visiting writer. So now I will give to you Benjamin Naka Aseri Kingsley. Ben belongs to the Onondaga Nation of Indigenous Americans in New York. He is the Appalachian author of the collection Demos, An American Multitude, out from Milkweed just this year, the collection Colonize Me, and the collection Not Your Mama's Melting Pot. He is the recipient of fellowships from the Provincetown Fine Arts Work Center, Tickner Center, and Kundiman, among others. His recent work has been published in the Breakbeat Poets, Latinx, Native Voices Honoring Indigenous Poetry, the Georgia Review, the Kenyon Review, Oxford American, Poetry Magazine, and Tin House. Please welcome to the stage, Ben Kingsley. Okay. I should have named that book Nacho Mama's Melting Pot. I like that better. Nacho Mama's Melting Pot. And I stop saying it. Okay. I wrestled with my printer for 30 minutes before this. I know how almost all of my beloved students feel now. But ODU literary enthusiasts, and also those of you who were forced to come here for class by your very wise and very correct teachers, we are so happy to have you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is my absolute honor to introduce Gabrielle Calaparesi. And first, I'm going to say some standard stuff so you know what an absolute poetry powerhouse badass is about to take to the stage. But then I want to take just a few seconds to say a few things from my heart. First, let me say that they are the author of 3 award-winning collections, all out from one of my absolute favorite publishers. They have received honors and fellowships from here and there and absolutely everywhere, genuinely. Published in every top literary journal under heaven, Gabby is an esteemed professor at UNC Chapel Hill. You might have heard of it, it's a very big deal. And they currently live in North Carolina. I want to take just one important second to talk about the first time that I ever got to speak to Gabby. It was all the way back in the in ye old 2017. At the time, I myself was a student in an MFA program, and 1 year earlier, I had all caps failed my MFA thesis. And for those of you who don't understand what that means, it means I was an absolute artistic failure. And now I'm a professor. What happened? What happened? But it just absolutely never happens. And I watched all my friends pass, and I was held back another year, and I failed for quality reasons. So it wasn't like I didn't turn in my shit. I was absolutely crushed. And I ended up switching genres from fiction to poetry. And whenever I picked up poetry, Gabby's poem, At Last the New Arriving, that was seriously my poetic North Star. I used to recite it out loud in my shitty apartment, and I wish I could read the whole poem for you right now, but that's not what I'm here for at all. But anyways, I took up poetry and I ended up winning this thing or whatever. And lo and behold, it was Gabby, my poetry hero, saying, "Your work mattered to me. Congratulations." And I will sincerely never forget it. And now I'm a professor, so this is my chance, right, to say thank you. Thank you so much, Gabby, for encouraging me. Sincerely, that was such a dark time. And you were sincerely one of the very first supporting voices that I had heard from in the genre of poetry. And I just want to end with two of the last lines from the poem that I mentioned. At last the new arriving, dance until your bones clatter. What a prize you are. What a lucky sack of stars. Gabby, we are the lucky sack of stars to have you today. Please come up. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you.
Wow! Hi, everyone! Whoa! This is my, hold on. Oh. I've been saying, there should be, like, we should figure out a new word for what it is to take off your mask. Right? Because there's like a really specific feeling attached to that. It's like a little moist. It's a little, there's a lot going on. It's really moving to be here, and it's really intense. This is my first time. I was someone who, was blessed enough to be getting on a plane every week, every other week, 19 months ago. All of that stopped, and this is my first time doing something in person in a really, really long time. And so I just want to thank you all for being here, and for all the reasons that you're here, and also just for being in this space, whether it's in person or virtually. There were certain platforms that went down today. It's been a big day online. My platform went down at one point. I don't even know what platform that was, but anyway, so I'm really, it feels really special, these moments where all of a sudden we're sort of creeping back towards each other. And I'm glad that I'm doing that with all of you. I certainly want to thank just everybody at ODU who's just been so incredible to me. This is the moment where I become profoundly nervous and I get names wrong, and that's just a little thing about me. So I would get my own. So if I make a mistake, I'm so sorry. But I just want to thank Kent, and I want to thank Catherine, and I want to thank John. I want to thank Louisa. I want to thank Molly, and I want to thank Ben so much. And I want to say this is something that happens, right? Like these moments where someone tells you that you don't matter or your work isn't good enough. Right after I got out of college, where I had been writing really, really seriously, I was not someone who was good really at school, period. But I seemed to have some kind of facility for poems. I always had a sort of life of the imagination inside me. I was a big daydreamer. I took poems really seriously. I graduated from college, and I had the experience where I had saved up. I had a administrative assistant job that I was terrible at, and I saved up money to take a poetry workshop in New York. And at the third class, the teacher said, "May I speak to you after class?" And I said, "Okay." And this was a poet that I had really admired. Like I really, really thought they were extraordinary. And I went to their office, and they said to me that I was someone who had a tremendous imagination. The minute someone tells you you have a tremendous imagination, wait for what's coming next. So they said I had a tremendous imagination, and that I was a very smart person, and I was too smart for them to waste my time any further. And they felt I should know that I was not a poet, though, and I should immediately stop writing poems. I should not come back to class. I should just, this was someone like the poet I really, really admired. I say that by way of saying that for me, the next person was Marie Howe, who said, right, like, "Oh, you matter, your poems matter." It took me a while. Like I really did not write for a while after that. And I will always remember then like those poems, interestingly, it was the Finance Works Center that Marie House said that to me. I will remember your poems like coming across my virtual desk and just knowing that there was a poet of such extraordinary ability and that I had never like read poems like that before. And so for all of you who Ben is their teacher, but also it's all of our teacher, right? Someone's gonna tell you, you know what, don't do this anymore. And then like someone else, if you just wait it out, is gonna say, no, like this thing you love, you get to keep doing because you love it. And when you love it, like the right people can tell. And so it's an honor for me to be here with you, Ben, absolutely. And with all of you. I'm gonna read around a little bit and then we're gonna have questions and I love to talk to all of you. So thank you for being here. Affirmation cistern, I love and tend my one and only body. Though it's hard and ticklish work, I sweep the forests with my feet, making little pyres of the pine cones, little cairns. I wash the faces of the rocks with my hands, and sometimes also with my tongue. No foolin'. I am trying to appreciate this body, my body. I open my ear holes so I can feel the tunnel from bird song to my root. I'm trying to not want too much. If I come upon the bones of an animal, a squirrel, say, or a raccoon, I try to feel it in my body. I try to be quit of the earthly idea that I'm not sibling to a squirrel or a raccoon. Try to strip away notions of dominion I learned in some book. I shine its little dead teeth and don't take them for a necklace or some possibility of a weapon to kill another person with. I let all the bleached femurs of every animal remain where they fell, and I think, that's what I want. My femur, my jaw, the empty gong of my pelvis, allowed to rest and not just be put to work again. If some other animal wants to build a castle out of cricket shells and badger sternums, that's cool. But maybe I'll just leave the bones alone. I spent a lot of time in my life sort of thinking about what it is to come through a lineage of destroyers, which I do, in a historical sort of larger sense. I had my family had the first person to fall off the Mayflower, which tells you absolutely everything you need to know about me, right? But even if they were funny, they were a fucking Puritan, and that also lives inside me. Excuse my language. I'm sorry, everyone on YouTube. But right, that lives inside me, and how do we do our best, and maybe doing our best is also acknowledging that within ourselves. I have to work with that a lot, and also what is it to have those kinds of histories of historical abuse all the way up through personal abuse in my own life, and live in this vessel. Mayflower cistern, I feel my pilgrim worry. All day long I feel my pilgrim worry, crude and unforgiving as the buckle on my boots. I mark the boundaries of the town, and then I build a fence. I build a pillory and a scaffold. I bring my gun into the forests, and my axe inside me. I hurl my brittle body at the pines. I have a plan for them, a way to make them useful, which is God's compact with the world. Whatever does not welcome me, I tear asunder. Whatever welcomes me was mine to sack and bring to my knees. I give the gift of my hunger to everyone, and then I build a fence. The doe is certainly a sorceress. The sparrow was the woman smiling into the mirror of the well. What will I make of this country inside me? My pilgrim huddles in the corner of my heart, which I hate for its hopeful sounding. Its unwillingness to know the truth of how broken and beyond salvation it is. Always both, back and forth, back and forth. Shave. Like the buck I am, I turn my head side to side. I hear the leaves rustle. I shake my head a little, and birds reel round the forest. I am no branch. My head turns to the side. I see out my side eye. The deep pool of the eye sees itself pool in the mirror. I oil myself till I am all a lather. My chest heaves out so my full heart can abandon the ribs stockade. Where the bullet would go if the hunter were a good shot, that's where I place the razor. I make my skin taut. I pull my own neck back into the side. I come for myself. Yes, I was a lady once, but now I take the blade and move it slowly past the jugular, up the ridge of my chin where the short hairs glisten. I was once ashamed. It was a thing I did in private, my own self, my quarry. No more. Look how the doe comes round, and also the doves, and also the wolf who lets me pass. The fox offers me the squirrel's hide to buff myself to shining. There is no such thing except the smoothness of my face. For anyone in here who was born a biological female and sort of still lives in that female vessel, if you go to like Walgreens or CVS tonight and ask for a Mach 3 razor, like go find that and then go shave your face, oh, it is delicious. I read that at a high school once, and I was like, if you went and did this and all the young women were like, really? And then it was Parents' Day, which I hadn't realized. And the parents were like, it's happening. The sun got all over everything. Over the boys and girls by the pool. Over the bougainvillea, which got so hot, my palms stayed warm for minutes after. It made a mess of a day that was supposed to be the worst and lured me outside, so I forgot her death entirely. And also the polar bears scrambling on the ice chips. And also that there was no water in the Golden State. The pool was full and the sun poured across the women's bodies, so you had to shade your eyes, or I did. I had to put my hand up to see what they were saying. I know it's no excuse, and I had made a plan to cry all day and into the evening. I marked it in my book, which seems like something I'd make up in a poem, except this time I actually did it. I wrote, grieve, because we're all so busy, aren't we? And so broke. I needed to make an appointment with my anguish so I could take my mind off buying groceries that I really couldn't afford. Anyway, I didn't mean to go outside, except there the sky was, just ridiculously blue, taunting me with pigment that I felt the need to name. And from somewhere close by, a voice I couldn't see because the sun was like a yolk cracked over it said, "What are you drinking?" And I said, "I'm grieving. I'm very busy remembering I made an appointment because last year I forgot and then felt awful." The sun opened its mouth and made a gong of the canyons. It poured across the girls and slipped across their Dior lenses. I put my tongue on it exactly when I should have been tearing at my clothes and lighting candles. I got on top and let it find the tightness in my back and open where my wings would be. Somewhere my mother was dying and someone was skinning a giraffe. And I let it go. I just let it go. What are we going to make of this time? So much loss, so many people. We're gonna have very full date books, a lot of us, everyone. I'd like to say the names of Venus Thrash, remarkable poet Venus Thrash, the remarkable poet Camilla Aisha Moon, the remarkable poet April Freely. Those are three astonishing, astonishing poets and people who we have lost in the last year. In my date book forever, and in my heart. Achingly beautiful, how the sky blooms umber at the end of the day through the canopy. Summers spent practicing in the apartment stairwell, hand on the banister, one foot after another. Did I ever tell you I couldn't walk until I was 3 and then sort of dragged myself up and down stairs until I was 7 or 8? That burgundy carpet. I'd stop to breathe and look out the window over brick tenements toward the Capitol building. Oak leaves so full of late summer sun, even I thought obscene, and stood stunned for a moment. My God, the urge to rest like the birds on the phone wires, chatting like barristers at the end of the day, myself the useless ambassador from the 3rd floor. I was the last one up, so the door was left open. I could still see it gaping from 2 stories down. Sometimes music played, sometimes I'd smell supper. Neighbors stopped to say hello, achingly beautiful how the sky looked as I stood after they left. Nicer somehow in the middle, all the trees tucking blackbirds into their darkness. It really did take that long. It took a long day. I don't know if anybody in this audience had to, I didn't walk for a very long time. And then in order to somehow get to go to Catholic school, when I die, if I get into heaven, I am going to ask God about this. In order to go to Catholic school, the nuns said I had to, first of all, I had to stop using the boys' bathroom. And then I also had to be able to walk up the stairs by myself. And so the entire summer before was spent like trying to learn how to walk. Anyone who's had to try and learn how to do something like that, I'm with you in that. This poem is for my dear friend Jenny Tonpahot, a remarkable Indigenous scholar who passed away earlier this year. Miss you. Would like to grab that chilled tofu that we love. Do not care if you bring only your light body. Would just be so happy to sit at the table and talk about the menu. Miss you. Wish we could bet which chilies they put on the silken pile. Our favorite. Sometimes green, sometimes red. Roasted, we always thought, but so cold and fresh. How did they do it? Wish you could be here to talk about it like it was so important. Wish you could. Watched you on the screens as I was walking, as I was cooking. Wished you could get out of the hospital. Can't bring myself to order our dish and eat it in the car. Miss you laughing. Miss you coming in from the cold and one too many meetings. Laughing. I'll order already. I'll order 7 helpings, some dumplings, those whole yam noodles that you love. You could come in your light body, or skeleton, or be invisible. I don't even care. No, you have a long way to travel. No, I don't even know if it's long at all. Wish you could tell me what you're reading. If you're reading, miss you. I'm at the table in the back. When I've been going places, I've been working on these poems that use miss you like a breath over and over again. Miss you, miss you, miss you. There's so many things we miss and so many people we miss now. What would it be if y'all wrote a poem that just went, miss you, like breath as much as anything else? Maybe we could open a portal and everyone would be together again. even if they were just ghosts, maybe especially. This is for my very much alive friend Ross Gay. Praise House, the new economy. In my pleasure zone, that doesn't sound right. In my just world that I love, right? The ghosts are here, and I'm here, and the ghosts I don't know, and then all my friends I love are here, and then all my friends I haven't met yet are here. It feels a little like that tonight. Praise House, the new economy. After and for Ross Gay. The rosemary bush blooming its unabashed blue. Also dumplings, filled with steam and soup so my mouth fills and I bubble over with laughter. Little things. People kissing on bicycles, being able to walk up the stairs and run back down. Joanna's garden after the long flight to Tel Aviv, not being detained like everyone thought I would. The man with dreadlocks and a perfect green shirt walking home from work, one cold beer before I drink it and get sick. How peaches mold into compost in a single day, orange to gray to darkness into dirt. Her ankles taste, the skin right under the knob, delicate as a tomatillo's shroud. All the animals that talk to me, that I finally let them talk to me. The blessing of waking early enough to watch the fox bathe itself. The suction of a man's hands meeting another's on the street, every single person looking up to see them. Bros, yes, but lovely in the golden light with brims swung to the back. I want shoulders like they have, want my waist to taper to an ass built like the Davids. I admit it, this body's not enough for me. Still, I love it. I'll be sure, blasting out in Nissan Sentra's windows, bow ties, ridiculous blues. My mother's seizures, specifically that I don't have them, that I can answer Ross's call or not, because we live harmonious and are always talking somehow. Tapestries with their gluttony of deer, fig perfume, and also cypress, boxer briefs, and packing socks and jockey shorts, strap-ons, soft and hard, welcome in her hand and in mine, as I greet the real me. The little shop in Provincetown and the speckled dog that licks itself in that fresco of the crucifixion. Mary Oliver, I love her, I really do. The baseball she gave me that says, "Go Sox," though I love the Orioles. Old Bay on all my shrimp and justice, and cities burning if people need to burn them to get free. My grandmother gardening in the late light, Sun Ra, the first time, Paris, even though I've never been there. Natal plums, tattoos everlasting, clouds, Orion's belt, pushing inside her with both hands, holding myself up, my weight, her grabbing and saying, God, fuck, the neighbors, Casablanca, not knowing anything, angels, mashed potatoes, good red wine. Ooh. You know, it's different when you're breathless now, right? It's wonderful to be breathless, but also there's this grief wave that overcomes you. Let me just say, Ross Gay is alive. Oh, that makes me feel good to have read that poem to my friend, and we are both in the world still. How much time do we have before you all get to go and do whatever you're going to do this evening? What are you all going to do this evening? Well, I looked for another poem. Will someone yell out what they're going to do after this?
Homework!
Homework! Did your teacher not tell you? I am allowed to tell you you don't have any more homework to do tomorrow. Yeah, you're welcome. You tell them that I said, Gabby, the poet last night, said that they had heard from the chancellor, whoever runs your school, the dean, that I didn't have to do homework.
Right there.
Where's the dean?
Oh, I meant the teacher.
Oh, the teacher's right there.
Not the dean.
Not the dean. The teacher didn't tell me, the dean told me. I'll be long gone by then. I had a mane once. I had a mane once. A glorious thicket. A generosity for all the cicadas to visit when the rains descended. I let the hornets make a mockery of me. I didn't sweat it. I let them sting and sting. Because I was enormous and magnanimous, I cut my leg and let the maggots build an empire. What did I care, I said to the fox. There's enough meat in me to go around. Then I'd stretch so the grubs could find new avenues, and they'd shiver with gratitude. They'd pass out drunk along the edges of the wound. I was my own economy. You could see me coming from miles around. And yes, I could break your last best thing in half. And yes, I was every inch an animal. But most days I was merciful. I'd pretend I was sleeping. I'd take all my danger and lay it at the river's edge. Just a few more. Nobility cistern, we have a stalwart friend. Oh my gosh, I was just reading about, I don't know what my Apple Watch is, but I will say that literally that poem was kind of about abuse and growing up in my house. And my dad just texted me on this. It's like, hi, he didn't say, what poem are you reading right now? That was the message I got. He's worked on himself a lot. Nobility cistern, we have a stalwart friend. There were more dark corners on this planet than I could fathom. Everywhere a dark corner. In the houses for sleep and the houses for healing. In the god houses, in the skin houses that cooed and bludgeoned. And sometimes both at once. So many dark places. And always something coming to find you when you just wanted some privacy. Even the dinner plate had its dark corners. So even my food wasn't my own. Where did it come from? The arm, and then darkness, and all my chicken casserole and vegetables gone. You could get killed for not passing the salt. You could get killed for not saying good morning. You could get every bone in your body broken because you didn't bring in the paper, didn't keep the wood stove burning, didn't get the ball in the basket. No, it was a joke. I was supposed to be laughing. A good way to know was how they treated their animals. I lay awake in my light body and heard the wooden pointer whistling through the air until it hobbled the dog. Into my light body, her light body whimpering, coward, but then licking the floor, then running along the riverbanks beside it. Sometimes I'd hit the dog too, with the newspaper rolled tight into a log, hollow drum of her flank. My head hung, with her forehead resting on mine. Oh. Ooh. Maybe just a couple more. Well, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm 46 years old and I'm in perimenopause. And if you're young enough in this room that you don't know what that is yet, you're lucky. No, just kidding. It's not that you're lucky, but boy, when I of all the ways I live in this gender non-conforming, non-binary, often masculine imagined, masculine presenting body, and all the ways I felt fear, and all the ways I imagined of feeling various things in my life, I never imagined that I'd turn 46 and just like all of a sudden my biology would be this thing that like is relentless and is a new challenge and gauntlet for me. So blessed are our bodies that keep reminding us about ourselves, teaching us. My perimenopausal body cistern, disappointing, How surprising. Bled all day. Stopped bleeding and bled some more. Went to the doctor who had to reach inside the woman body I try to live with, make peace with, but also ignore. Sad tenant, my uterus. One day the tenant turns out to be the landlord. All day I keep wondering what it means. This clock I know as well as I know anything, but also never wanted, but also won't give up. In the history of my light body, it will show I could have been another, but I hold on. Not out of fear, well, maybe, but also this body I fought for. Little skin sack that grew into a kind of magnificence I'd not expected. I tied my bow tie around my neck. That's not quite the neck I want, but still, the neck survived. The hours on the floor begging for my life, the bent head crying in the bathroom, the bent head walking by the boys as they yelled hog and dog and ugly as an animal. It's confusing. I protect the breasts that I live without in my mind's eye. I look for hours at men's trousers and kimonos. I bleed all day, and my mind says, take it out. And though it's one step closer to the true self I imagine, also I miss it in ways I can't explain. Burnt off scroll. I'm a mirror of a mirror. When I was 8 at daycare, my friends pulled me aside to talk about a sex change. All of us in our Catholic uniforms. Meg, Emily, Nadine, and Brian, who got kicked out because of me. That's later in the story. We drew me in the sand. We planned and wondered how much it would cost to be another body. But now, I know my body. I pull up my pants and feel the lack of one thing as the muffin top reminds me of the persistence of another. Me, who's with me always. This pillow of skin and fat that I'd call Rubenesque. It tried its best to cover me, and so I worry over it. Strange companion, this body that covers me and bleeds all day without ceasing. I say, come on. I say, stop. Like I used to when I'd get too scared of one thing or another. God comes back to find me in the most confounding ways. Me and my body, who are often not the same. So interesting to think when I was little, the way we called it was like a sex change. I think about that so much. That was a dream I had for so long when I was little, and then how beautiful that it is now transition that we keep evolving into what we think about how we imagine our bodies, and how I continue to imagine what my body might become. Hey, thanks for being here with me and my body today, and everything else. I'm going to read, I'm going to read 2 more poems, and then I would love to answer questions if people would like to ask questions, and if what you need to do is go do your homework, although you don't have to because it's canceled. I heard classes are canceled tomorrow. Hammond B3 organ cistern. The days I don't want to kill myself are extraordinary. Deep bass. All the people in the streets waiting for their high fives and leaping. I mean leaping when they see me. I am the sun-filled god of love, or at least an optimistic undersecretary. There should be a word for it. The days you wake up and do not want to slit your throat. Money in the bank. Enough for a nice green tea every weekday and Saturday and Sunday. It's like being in the armpit of a Hammond B3 organ. Just reeks of gratitude and funk. The funk of ages. I am not going to ruin my love's life today. It's like the time I said yes to gray sneakers, but then the salesman said, wait. And there, out of the back room, like the bakery's first biscuits, bright blue kicks. iridescent, like a scarab. Oh, who am I kidding? It was nothing like a scarab. It was like bright blue fucking sneakers. I did not want to die that day. Oh my God, why don't we talk about it? How good it feels. And if you don't know, then you're lucky, but also you poor thing. Bring the band out on the stoop. Let the whole neighborhood hear. Come on, everybody, say it with me nice and slow. No pills, no cliff, no brains on the floor. Bring the bass back. No rope, no hose, not today, Satan. Every day I wake up with my good fortune and news of my demise. Don't keep it from me. Why don't we have a name for it? Bring the bass back. Bring the band out on the stoop. Hallelujah. Oh, y'all make me want to be alive. This is my last poem, and I'm gonna just say thank you all. Thank you for being with me. Then I'm gonna open my arms wide to anyone who's on Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook, if it's up yet, or anything like that. And if there's no one there, I'm just gonna open to that too, and I'm open to all the everything. And you can also invite all your people and all your ghosts to come too, right in here. Come on. Miss you. Would like to take a walk with you. Do not care if you just arrive in your skeleton. Would love to take a walk with you. Miss you. Would love to make you shrimp saganaki like you used to make me when you were alive. Love to feed you. Sit over steaming bowls of pilaf, little roasted tomatoes covered in pepper and nutmeg. Miss you. Would love to walk past the post office with you. Bring the ghost dog. We'll walk past the waterfall and you can tell me about the after. Wish you would come back for a while. Don't even need to bring your skin sack. I'll know you. I know you'll know me even though I'm bigger now. Grayer. I'll show you my garden. I'd like to hop in the leaf pile you raked, but if you want to jump in, I'll rake it for you. Miss you. Standing looking out at the river with your rake in your hand. Miss you in your puffy blue jacket. They're hip now. I can bring you a new one if you'll only come by. No, I told you it was okay to go. No, I told you it was okay to leave me. Why'd you believe me? You always believed me. Wish you would come back so we could talk about truthfulness. Miss you. Wish you would walk through my door. Stare out from the mirror. Come through the pipes. Thanks so much for being with me tonight. I really appreciate it. Thanks to all of you in the ether.
Fabulous. There we go. Thank you so much, Debbie. And now, for all of y'all out there in the audience who have questions, among other things burning inside of you, let your hands fly up. Oh my God, this is spectacular. First, what do we have?
Hi, will you say your name? I'm Gabby.
Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Nice to meet you. I was reading an article that said growing up, your family owned a drive-in cinema. So I was wondering if there were any films growing up that inspired your writing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, would you like the movies, Jeff?
Yeah, I actually take a film class in this.
In this room right here? What's the last movie you watched in here?
I think it was Eternal Sunshine. And what's your name? Scarlett Johansson.
Yeah, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. That's an incredible film. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, my family owned drive-in movie theaters, and I make it sound like it's like some empire. We owned 2 drive-in movie theaters and one second-run movie theater, but it was amazing. And other than then, multiplexes came in, and we had to sell all of them. And I always said to my family, "Don't sell the last drive-in." I don't know if I somehow knew global pandemic was coming, but we would have been rolling in cash, which we most certainly are not. There were specific movies that really meant a ton to me, but really it was just the act of going to the movies. I have a visual and neurological difference called nystagmus, and it affects my vision and it affects my balance. And so when I was little, and I also am quite nearsighted, and so when I was little, I would be taken to the drive-in or the movie theater and just like popped in front of like the movie. I can watch anything. Like I can watch anything multiple times because that's kind of like what it is to own a movie theater. It's like they were just like, here we go again. Like great. But because of that, what I didn't realize until later, the movies were so real to me. I mean, like to a point. Did anyone else have the experience of like movies and TV, or still have it? Movies and TV being so real, like one can't quite tell the boundary between like reality and the show.
Yep.
Anyone? Yeah. At least one person admits it. But it was probably true of other people. But that was really true of me. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that part of that was that the movie screen was the only thing I could see clearly. Like it was the only thing that was really, and it was so vivid that like that was what reality was to me. That was the one thing that was clear. There are certain movies that really did stick with me. The Outsiders, because the book is so important to me. Probably the truth is there is no piece of literature that is more important to my life as a writer than S.E. Hinton's The Outsiders. I mean, and in terms of my gender life and all that. So The Outsiders was like a huge, huge deal to me as a movie. Also, though, and this is a movie like I can't say I like because even when I think about it now, I have to crawl under the podium because I'm so scared. But I for some reason, a babysitter took me to like our drive-in to see Poltergeist 2 when I was very young. Please don't search this. Like, I'm going to say a name, but don't look it up. But there is a character in that movie. I'm not going to say, I'm just going to say there's a character in that movie who is so scary looking, just so scary, that that really did affect me in a way, and it affected me because I couldn't sleep for like 17 years, but also there was something about the quality of a certain kind of fear and having to get around it, if that makes sense, that happened in my experience of watching that movie that I do think actually played a really important part in like a kind of threat and terror I might let into my work, but also like trying to like not even evade it, but just like constantly be like, I'm brave enough, I'm brave enough, I'm brave enough, if that makes sense. So I think those two were super, super important to me. But then there's just like millions of, I mean, like Flashdance. I somehow got to see Flashdance when I was really little. Let me tell you, for an aspiring lesbian who was this size, like Flashdance was a real revelation to me. Like I was like Jennifer Beals. If you're watching this tonight, thank you. Thanks so much, Jeff. Anybody else? Hi, I'm Gabby.
I'm Peter.
Hi, Peter.
I also have a very fluid approach to reality.
Yes.
But my question is who's Captain Lovell to you?
Oh, okay. So I should say that in this book, Rocket Fantastic, there are, it's sort of, I think of it as kind of one long poem, but there are poems in this book that are written to, ostensibly to the astronaut Captain Lovell. Although by the time it made it, that's a deep cut, Jeff, because by the time it made it into this book, it's Major General. In this book, but there are earlier publications where when I first was thinking about that book, I was thinking about the astronaut Jim Lovell, and I had been working in persona for a really long time, and history and its difficulties, and the sort of fantasy of it and the brutality of it means a lot to me. And so when the first iterations of this book were being made, that was much more specifically like a younger version of me writing to Jim Lovell and sort of the idea of that astronaut. And then within the scope of the book, I realized that didn't work for the book so much anymore because I went to Marfa, Texas. This seems like a tangent, but it's not. I went to, should be the name of my collected poems. I went to Marfa, Texas because I got this great fellowship. Thank you, Landon Foundation. And I was so proud of that book, and it had all the Captain Lovell poems and all this and that. And I sat down to read the book. Have any of you had this experience, like with a paper you've written or something? Like I began reading it, and at first I was proud, and then like pretty quickly I began to feel much less happy, and then I felt pretty nauseous and like I was gonna pass out. And I was like, oh, this is a disaster. Like, this is not good at all. And it had a kind of heart that was good, but it just wasn't working. And part of it was that it was so locked into its story. So I had sort of three choices. I had 6 weeks ahead of me in Marfa, and I could either throw the manuscript away and start something totally new. I could try to fix it as it was, and like sticking with the same idea and like fix it, or I could like have the nervous breakdown I needed to have about it. Like really, that's not a joke. Like I spent a lot of time in bed after that, and like kind of have my existential crisis, and then figure out what the book really wanted to do and be about. And that's what I did. What I realized was that one of the things was the book was really, it had a lot to do with vessel and about the things that I used to think needed to be clear, not needing to be clear anymore. And I had been taught, my remarkable teacher, Lucy Brock-Broido, rest her soul, had said three things, you need to know three things in a poem. Who is speaking to whom, for what purpose, and through what mask. And I sort of decided, well, what if those weren't the points of clarity in this book? Like, what if I took all the dates out? What if I took most of the names out? What if you didn't know exactly where you were? What if I had to create other kinds of specificity, other kinds of coding, which is sort of probably more similar to the body and the world I live in? And so Jim Lovell went away, but my feeling about the astronauts and my feeling about him and that sort of period, I think still is kind of, I can feel it in the book because that means a lot to me. That was a long answer that may have made no sense, Jeff. Was that okay?
Well, it's funny. My name's Peter.
Oh, Peter, I'm so sorry. Peter.
But actually, my
Jeff. Peter. I have 19 months out of practice.
But no, it was a very good answer. Thank you. It had struck me because I'd read 3 captain level poems.
Yes.
Before coming in, and it's like I think these mirror kind of your nonlinear memory sequences.
Oh, totally. Totally. I mean, I think I really, it's interesting. None of those, a few of those poems got published, but they're not ones that I read that often. And it's funny that I don't because they mean a lot to me, but almost like so much that I almost can't read them. It's like going into my really little self, and that's the space that I have a hard time going to. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you for telling me your name.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Keisha.
Hi, Keisha. I'm Gabby.
So I read your poem, Miss You, Would You Like to Bread, Chilled Tofu, You Love?
Yes.
So is this poem like based on like a favorite restaurant you guys went to?
Yes, Shanghai Dumpling in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And my friend Jenny and I, we used to just like go there. That would be the place. Keisha, do you have a friend where like you don't even necessarily see them all the time, but when you see them, you tend to see them in the same place? Do you have anything like that? No. It might be that like I was gonna say as you get older, and that when I remember when people would say that to me, I'd be like, I'm leaving right now. Like, but I would say that like maybe that's something that as I have gotten older that happens. Like, I don't see certain people as much as I used to, but when I see them, there's kind of this one place. And for Jenny and I, we would go to Shanghai Dumpling. She was much busier than me in a lot of ways. She had, as frankly, women of color on college campuses often are given significantly more committee work than white women and white men. And so she was always coming from meetings. She was always coming from somewhere. And I would hold our table, and we would always like pretend like we didn't know what we were gonna get. We'd like get like a bunch of, but then we'd be like, maybe we should get the chilled tofu. But every time we would get it, and like it would, Keisha, I wish I could explain it to you. It's like, have you ever had chilled tofu with roasted chilies on it? It's so weird and so good. I don't want to say weird. Weird not meaning weird like that. It's so, weird is the wrong word. It is not like there is such a texture to it that is like, it makes me feel so many different things inside emotionally. I think that's what I mean by weird is like, I feel really
so good in so many different ways that I don't always have access to when I eat that dish. And it's got these beautiful chilies on top. And sometimes they were red, sometimes they were green. And we would eat them and we would just like talk about, like, for so long, we would geek out about like, what was this recipe?
And then she's 35 and she got leukemia. And, all the people we lost during the pandemic didn't die of COVID, but still were COVID, I think was part of it in a way. And like, I just wish we could go to the restaurant and eat that food. I can't bring myself to eat that food. It's like, the idea of it is like sawdust now to me.
But you don't go there anymore.
I don't. I would. Someday, I just went and had Chinese food for the first time recently, and it's one of my favorite cuisines. I mean, there's so many different kinds of Chinese food, but I love it. But I realized recently it's one of the reasons I hadn't gone in so long. And I actually went with her husband and her young son, and Keisha, I stand by that restaurant. I pass it on the bus, and I say, one day I'm gonna go in. But I've got to find just the right waiter who's going to be okay with me like sobbing uncontrollably and eating tofu at the same time. Which I do think that waiter exists, but yeah. Would you go back to the restaurant, Keisha?
I would.
Yeah, I think I should. I'm going to go
I would
back.
order it to go.
Order it to go and like eat it outside, right? Yeah, well that was the thing, like during the pandemic I was like, I could just go get it and eat it in the car. I'm gonna eat it. Keisha, when I eat it, I am gonna think of you too. Is that okay?
Is the tofu fried?
No, it's like, oh my God, Keisha.
It's like so cold. It's like you're eating tofu it's like a mountain spring became tofu. And it's like, it was chopped in little squares. If anybody knows this dish, there may be people online, if there's anyone online who, like, it's chopped in little squares and they're just kind of like piled on top of each other. It's so cold. And then on top of it are these chilies that are also cold, but they have like heat to them, right? They have like heart heat to them. And so it's like you're eating this thing that is so cold and so warm, and like it gets right, it's got a little bit of like, I think they maybe put a little bit of those like flower peppers, because it's like right now, even as I say it, my tongue's getting a little numb in front, just like it does. If you go to a Chinese restaurant, do you like Chinese food, Keisha?
I do.
Yeah, when you go, see if you see chilled tofu with roasted chilies. It's really good.
I'll try it just for you.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could be here with you, Keisha. My email is gabbat@gmail.com. I just said that to the universe, but I bet the only person there might be my partner. gabbat@gmail.com. Keisha, I'm telling you that. Would you maybe email me if you remember? You don't have to, but you can try it. Would you email me? Awesome.
Okay, maybe one more question.
Okay, sorry. People are like, got it.
Hi, Yeti.
Hi, who, I can't see.
Oh, my name is Annette. I like being in that.
I love that you're in the, did you say Annette?
Yeah.
Hi, Annette, I'm Gabby.
Yeah.
Hi.
So my question was, I'm not very good with writing poetry. I'm actually very terrible at it and interpreting it for fiction writing. But when you write, is there a difference, like, in the process, like, of writing your poem? Like, if you're gonna write something, do you already kind of know, like, you know what you're gonna write about? Do you just write, or you're like, I want to include this, this, and this, or you just free write?
Annette, that's such a good question. I am someone who goes through pretty extraordinarily long periods of writer's block, like not writing. Like these poems, some of these miss you poems and stuff like that, I wrote in the last, I don't know, maybe 5 months. Before that, it had been since 2018, since I had written a poem. That's something I've really had to get comfortable with in my life, is like, there are times when I just don't write. And I used to really hate myself for it. And so I'd spend 3 years like writing terrible poems that never saw the light of day. Some people would like, it's really good to write every day. I was terrible when I had a desk job, and like, that's not a way I want to lead my life in poetry. But for some people it works incredibly well. I say that by way of saying, I think that one of the things that I do, and I think this is useful for students who maybe like, it's hard when you're in class because you have a poem that's just like due. But if you are someone who considers yourself not to be very good at poetry or terrible at poetry, but some part of you wants to be good at it, whatever that means to you, and it's really like just whatever it means to you. Because everybody, half the poems there's a poem I read tonight that I just saw, I just published it, and it's the first time something like this has happened to me, but I saw that 22,000 people have liked it on Instagram today. There's probably at least 22,000 people, if 22,000 other people have read it today, that are like, that is the worst poem I've ever read in my life. Why does anyone want to hear about this Joker's uterus? Not me. I say that by way of saying, part of the thing I would say to you is figuring out what good means to you, right? What does good mean to you? For me, good means noticing things in the world and really feasting on it. And not necessarily going everywhere with a notebook, right? And writing down, this is what, but taking it all in, eating that tofu, seeing my friend on the screen at the hospital, and not being this is gonna go in a poem, but being this is my friend in the hospital, living in those moments. And then at some point, sitting down and often having an idea, I want to write about that chilled tofu, but also understanding that as I describe that chilled tofu and I get inside it, letting myself leap to other places. So I guess it is a kind of free writing that I often do, Annette, but it's usually a free write that comes after devouring the world, hopefully in a non-extractive way, for a long time, and then kind of just seeing what happens in a more pragmatic way when I have periods where I feel I should be writing, it's been long enough for me, and I do need to sit down and write a poem, and I can't quite figure out how to start. I will go to a poem I love, today in class we looked at a poem by the remarkable poet Camilla Shamoun, rest their soul, called Taking Out the Trash, and there's the first stanza is so beautiful, and so I will often take the first 2 lines of the poem, and I will just write those lines out and then write from there. And it can also be a song. I was listening to a lot of Neo during my second book. I was kind of obsessed, and there would be certain songs or just hooks that I would hear, and then I would just write it. And then I would take out the references to the song, and I could never be as good as Neo, but but maybe there's a kind of feeling in it. So I think also any line, any kind of piece of language, does someone say something to you that you love, to write that down and let that be the jumping off point can also be a more pragmatic way to get into the poem. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. It's hard though. What is it, when you say terrible, you're a terrible poet, what does it mean? Does it mean you think the poem isn't good, or is that the poem has not met your expectations, which can be different?
Because poetry is so much more subtle than fiction, and then on top of that, probably TMI, but I have Asperger's on top of it.
Yeah.
So I'm not very good with subtle references to things, so when I write, it comes out more like a story instead of your poems, where it's all subtle references. I don't know, I don't like it. I see it and I want to hurl myself down flight stairs.
I get that. That's also how I feel a lot of times with poems. I mean that really and truly. I am not someone who it is always a highly pleasurable experience. Thank you for saying that, Annette. Thanks for letting us listen into that process. And I guess I would just say if poems are somehow important or you want to move into them, just finding the way in that feels authentic to you. As we started in the beginning, Ben and I can't tell you the amount of people who when I was in grad school, someone pulled me aside and was we just want you to know we think you're the weakest poet in the class. I'm not here to say that how they're doing right now in the poetry career, but I will say that it's turned out pretty okay for me. God bless them. But so, and one of the ways I did it is I just go through my own gate, and it's not, and you have to learn how to build your gate. But then when that gate opens and it's only yours, you don't sound like anybody else, even though you can also all your lineage, Marie Howe, Ross, like all these people come with you, but when you know how to build your own gate, like that's your house. So I bet your house is so friggin' beautiful in that, whatever it is.
That was the most artful way I've ever been told to just do it.
Just do it. Just do it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Annette. Oh, ping! That's someone being like, we're done. Well, thank you so much, everyone. It's such a blessing being here with you. And hey, this has been a really long 19 months, and I really appreciate you. It's great to be in Norfolk. And I hope for those of you who still decide to go do your homework, like, I don't know, do something a little different with it. See what might happen. Whatever that means. Oh, calculus. Have a beautiful night, everyone. I really appreciate you. What's the word for putting the mask back?